2 years ago, the Obama Justice Department sent shockwaves throughout the country when they released new guidelines telling federal authorities not to arrest marijuana users and suppliers who weren't violating local laws. Eric Holder even said that it would be an insufficient use of funds, going after people in states where medical marijuana had been legalized. But now it seems like they've done a complete 180. The Department of Justice has recently sent letters to states threatening that they will go after state employees and will look at both civil and criminal penalties for those who run large-scale operations, even if they're acceptable under state law. And already many states that were headed towards a medicinal legalization path have started to back off. So why the drastic shift in policy? And could this doom the medical marijuana industry? Here to discuss it with me is Scott Morgan, Associate Editor of StopTheDrugWar.org. Scott, thanks so much for being here tonight.
Sure.
First of all, let's talk about these letters that are now being sent out. Do we know how many states have received them? Some of the exact details of what they say?
It looks as though just about every state that's working on implementing a medical marijuana program this year has been targeted. We haven't heard anything similar in the District of Columbia yet, but we very well may in the near future.
But it's also going to states where they already have medicinal marijuana laws, right? Like California's getting one.
States like Colorado and Washington, for example, have had medical marijuana for some time, but there are efforts underway to regulate it, in a more strict way. And so, obviously, anywhere where there are efforts underway to improve the regulations and get the state more involved in controlling where marijuana is sold, who sells it, and so forth, the federal government is interfering with that.
So what does that tell you, that the Obama administration, I mean, in the meantime, what, we have 15 states plus the District of Columbia where medical marijuana is legalized. Are they trying to just stop this, to scare people? I mean, if you send a letter that says that your state employees are going to get, thrown into jail, obviously it's working. It's making a lot of governors already step back.
It works as a propaganda tactic, as a scare tactic. I don't know that it's going to work beyond that. But essentially, their agenda here is to distract, disorient, and confuse states that are working to regulate medical marijuana. And these are the same sorts of tactics that we've seen from sort of the old guard of drug war demagogues going back to the mid-90s when medical marijuana was first legalized in California. For 15 years, we've been told, you can't have medical marijuana, it's illegal under federal law, you just can't do it. Well, we've been figuring out ways to do it in one state after another after another. And one thing that the federal government has never done is arrest a state employee for enforcing their own state's laws.
So this is unprecedented, what we're seeing right now.
It's not unprecedented insofar as the government is misrepresenting its own illegal agenda. They don't actually intend to do this. It's a lie. It's just one in a long series of lies that the Department of Justice and the Drug Enforcement Administration have put out there in an effort to push down the medical marijuana these states and stop the medical marijuana movement from moving forward. It's not going to work.
Well, one thing that I think we see happening on the sidelines, or as a result of this move, is now there are certain governors out there that are trying to lobby for marijuana to be rescheduled, right, as a substance 2 or Schedule 2. Excuse me, my knowledge isn't completely up to par. But so that would, back in February, NORML was saying that this is something that pharmaceutical companies were also lobbying for, because that way they could get their hands on it to create some types of drugs with derivatives from THC. So, in essence, if they get all of the governors to start lobbying for the rescheduling of marijuana, then is that going to end up helping out the pharmaceutical companies? And is that why the government's doing it? Because the pharmaceutical companies are lobbying them? I just came up with this theory, but
well,
you know
what, you're not alone, and I think that there's certainly truth to the fact that a number of pharmaceutical companies are interested in getting involved in the medical marijuana business. The drug has a better reputation than a lot of the stuff that's on the market now. People know that it's safe, it's highly effective, it treats a wide variety of conditions. So the pharmaceuticalization of marijuana is going to happen. The question is, will that coincide with suppression of the existing herbal cannabis market that's emerged? In my opinion, I don't think it will. And the reason is that we've made all this progress in terms of reforming medical marijuana policies because that's what the public wants. Because the medicine is cheap, it's easy to grow, the side effects are pleasurable, people like it. If you want to pharmaceuticalize it, take the fun out of it, drive up the costs, we have a legal framework to do that, but it's not going to reduce public enthusiasm for reforming marijuana laws. That process is always going to continue. The support's always going to be there, and you can manipulate state governments, you can threaten to arrest state officials. People know you're not really going to do that. People know that as long as we continue to move forward. This industry started in 1996. It was valued in a recent report at $1.7 billion. Every dollar of that is technically illegal under federal law, and yet it continues to grow. So I think the important thing is for state officials and for the public to recognize that these threats are erroneous, they're aimed at intimidating us, they're aimed at there are new medical marijuana states, there are new reforms taking effect, and the polls show more support for that than ever before.
Well, it's definitely interesting, too, if you think back to 2009 when, Attorney General Eric Holder was saying that we don't need to waste our resources and waste our funds for going after these people. It's not like we're in any better financial situation today, so I don't know why they would want to spend money on that. But why do you think they're going about this in a much more secretive manner? Because I feel like when they first released that guideline, everybody heard about it, right? There were whispers everywhere. They said they're not going to go after people within the states. And here, I think they're trying to keep it completely below the radar.
Well, I think the reality here, and it's a bit of a conundrum, but I think that the Obama administration does understand the intense political popularity of the idea of reforming marijuana laws. You know, when they announced the initial Holder memo saying that they were going to respect state medical marijuana laws, they leaked that story to the Associated Press on a Sunday night. You know, they were looking for a whole full week's news cycle on that when they knew the public was going to like it. They were delivering on a campaign promise, and it got really positive press everywhere.
But now they haven't delivered, so I'm just curious, where do you think that advocates of legalization are going to go in 2012?
Well, in 2012, I think we're likely to see full-scale legalization measures on the ballot in multiple states. And if the results, for Prop 19 in California last year are any indication, that thing lost by 3.5 points. And in an off-election year, you're going to have this huge boost in young voters in 2012 that could more than fill that gap. So full legalization is coming up on the horizon very, very quickly here. And that's likely got something to do with why we're seeing the Department of Justice kind of freaking out a little bit right now, realizing that this thing has already sort of moved beyond that point. They can't push it back. Public support is just so immense and continues to grow. And once that sense of inevitability kicks in, suddenly there's nothing to fall back on. All of your propaganda talking points have been refuted. The internet creates this powerful resource. The president's online forums are getting dominated by discussion of marijuana legalization. Everywhere you look, this issue is taking control. And it's probably too late for the people that are deeply invested in keeping marijuana illegal to come back and actually resurrect themselves.
We will see where it goes, because I definitely remember, a lot of momentum around Prop 19, and then it didn't go through. So we'll definitely be keeping our eye on this. Scott, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.